the one that just kept coming up over and over and over is this iconic blue guitar.
Yeah.
And it's a guitar that I've always seen. It looks rad. It's got the big BJ on the front and stickers.
Yeah.
But it never crossed my mind to think, like, what was recorded with this? When did he get it? How long has he had it? There's different versions I thought I had seen. I didn't know if there were multiple versions of it. You are someone who is incredibly knowledgeable on the Blink side, but you've also done a ton of research on the Green Day side. We were chatting about this, and I was just so stoked to have you on and talk about this because I have so much to learn from you, and I really appreciate you taking the time to jump on the podcast.
Yeah, blue is a guitar that has literally been with Billie Joe even before Green Day was a band. Like, it's really something that I'm pretty sure when he dies that he's going to be buried with it. I am willing to bet the $5 in my wallet that he is going to be buried with that guitar. That's how important and how iconic it is to a lot of Green Day fans. And yeah, there's a lot of history. There's a lot of misinformation out there. There are a lot of people that say this is this and that is that, and a lot of it is wrong.
Yeah.
And we came across it a lot with the sticker strat, but there's definitely a lot of information about blue that a lot of people, I think, could be good to learn about, a lot to correct as well. So
yeah, we're gonna dive right into this thing. So this is his quote unquote blue guitar is the name of it. When did he first get this?
Sure. So he got this guitar when he was 11 years old. He got it from his guitar teacher, who is a guy named George Cole, who's actually a well-respected guitarist in California, and just a great player. And he taught Billie Joe and Mike around the same time. He taught Billie Joe for a little bit longer, and what he remembers about that, because there's actually a really good interview that a Green Day fan site did with him, and he gives a lot of really good insight to when they were really young. And he says that whenever Billie Joe would come in for lessons, like, he just had this really crappy, like, Honor acoustic. And believe it or not, actually, I have the interview pulled up right here. Don't want to get this wrong because this is also just a really good quote. The interview kind of talks about just playing and how George and Billie really connected, because I'm sure a lot of people know that Billy lost his dad at a really young age, and George also lost his dad around the same time, and they both died of cancer, so that made them really close. He says, I let him play the blue guitar every time he came in for his lessons, and he bonded with the guitar, just like it was his guitar before it was even his. He would play the guitar during our lessons, and he loved it. He had this crap Hunter guitar. I knew that he really wanted it, so I sold it to him for the price that I bought it for. He would play it, he just loved it. And his mom was a waitress, and so money was tight. He had no dad or anything, so I probably should have just given it to him, but I sold it to him for what I paid for it. I drove it over to his house. His mom wasn't there, and I just handed him the guitar in the tweed case. I'm older than him, however many years. It was just kind of awkward handing it to him because he was a little kid. He just said, thanks, and takes the guitar, and the guitar was pristine. So at the time that he got it, it was unmodded, no stickers, no nothing, no other changes. So it was just a kid. His first real guitar is really, and he still plays it.
Man, that just gave me goosebumps. Like, Jesus, I almost got emotional during that. Like, holy hell.
Yeah.
What a start to this thing. This is like destiny, man. And I also just learned that I guess Mike had lessons with the same dude. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For he didn't take lessons as long, but they took lessons around the same time.
Man. So looking at this, like, when I see pictures of it, my gut would immediately say, oh, that's a Strat. I learned through you, it's not. What brand was this? Or
sure.
This?
So it's a Stratocaster, but it's not a Fender. Okay. So there's a company, Fernandes, who I guess were now, because as of July 2024, they have gone bankrupt, millions of dollars. They were a company based out of Japan that made what they used to make back in the 70s and early 80s, is that Fernandes, Ibanez, before they started making their own guitars, was they used to make 100% accurate copies of vintage guitars.
Hmm.
So one guitar that Fernandes made was a dead-on replica of a Stratocaster, and they copied every detail about it, like as if it left the Fender factory in the mid 1950s when they started making them. And the particular one that Billy's was a Fernandes revival. The model is RST 80. What makes it, and there's some confusion about this because some people think it's an RST 50. While the guitars are very similar, the 80 is made out of alder and also has a V neck shape, which is accurate to the 50 Stratocasters. And that's one thing that Hans has said a couple times over the years, is that there's a bit of it has a bit of a V feel in the back profile of the neck, and there's also a couple stamps as well that indicate that it's an RST 80. Billy's blue guitar, his original Fernandes, is an RST 80, finished in Sonic Blue.
So was Fernandez, I mean, were they a reputable brand? Was it a
Mm-hmm.
lower priced entry point? Like, I had never heard of that brand. So I'm just
Sure.
trying to understand like what kind of company it was, I guess. I mean, it was
They
around
were
for a long time.
they were around for, I forget exactly when they started, but they had been around for a number of years prior to kind of to Billy getting blue. I would say that those guitars, especially those back in the early 80s, or what are called the lawsuit guitars, because eventually what happened is that because they also made copies of Gibsons as well under the Bernie name, which you might see in a few places. What ended up happening is that once Fender and kind of the bigger companies started realizing, like, hey, we can sell guitars to more places outside of America, what they started doing was they started going to other places like Europe and Japan to start manufacturing and selling guitars there. What ended up happening is that they started catching on to what companies like Fernandez and Ibanez were doing, and they just started handing out cease and desist letters like, no, we have a trademark on those headstocks, you can't use those.
What's the year of this? Is it confirmed? Like, do you have a serial number, or have folks been able to get that from former techs or anything?
I'm sure somebody will tell me at one point or another. I don't recall the serial number offhand. It's definitely an early 80s model, probably an 82 or an 83. Yeah,
And he gets that. What year is this that he gets it? Is it 83-ish?
around that time. Yeah, of what George said of it, he said, Peter Margin is a friend of mine. David Margin is his brother. David was playing with Santana, and at the time he came back from Japan, and they gave him guitars. You know, like when people like you, they'll give you guitars. Like, hey, play our guitars. We'll put you in ads and do all of this. So he was there with Santana. Of course, they loved him. They gave him guitars and basses. Fernandez at the time was considered, the headstock is just like a Fender. They call it the lawsuit guitar because they had to change the shape of the headstock. It was a dead-on Fender replica. And so he had a bunch of these guitars and basses. He was selling them cheap, so I think I bought it for $180. I bought it from Peter, who had a bunch of these guitars from David's trip to Japan. They were all lined on his bed in his apartment in Berkeley, and that's how the guitar came to me. I only had the guitar for not even a year.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that helps kind of timestamp it a little bit with that tour and
Mhm.
everything.
Yep.
Man, so he gets that, and really that is his primary axe for years, right? I mean, how long
Yeah.
is he using that?
Gets it in the early 80s. He's pretty much been using it ever since.
Mm.
So if we were to put a proper timestamp on it, let's say 1983, for example, it's now what, 2025? It's over 40 years. And
Oh my
he's still
gosh.
playing the same damn guitar.
In the earliest like footage of Green Day, and this is where I'm not a Green Day historian, so I don't know
Sure.
the earliest photos to surface or footage or
Hmm.
whatever, but is he playing that exclusively?
Pretty much. It's really the only guitar that you see him play. I have a couple other photos from the really early days of kind of the guys being photographed with other bands of them playing other guitars, and they're usually guitars from other bands. So around this time, Billy's playing his number one blue. Mike's playing. He doesn't have his Gibson yet. He's playing a PV Patriot. He gets his Gibson a little bit later, but yeah, Billy's pretty much playing blue exclusively until I think about 1997. It's really the only
Jeez.
guitar that you see him with, and I know we'll talk about the other ones.
From a pickup or like modification perspective, did he keep that pretty stock, or when did he start to mess with it?
Sure. So it wasn't too long. So like I said, this interview with George honestly like we're going back to this because it just has just so much great information. If I had to be honest,
How
and
long ago was that interview? I'm just curious.
this was 2021, so
Okay,
this
so
so
pretty
this is
recent.
this is pretty relevant. Yeah. So yeah, he says of what Model Blue was. He said the guitar was brand new. Let's see, it was an 82 or 83. Just the most nondescript Fernandes guitar. Wasn't anything special. Just proves again that it's the player. Keep those words in mind. I probably wouldn't have put the pickup in it, but I sold it to him and said, put this pickup in it because if you think of all the music that was around him, it was the guitar sound. It would have sounded too much like Dire Straits or something like that. Wouldn't have that big bat. It wouldn't have that big bat sound. I gave him the Bill Lawrence pickup and said, put this in the bridge and have it at an angle like Van Halen, or else the opposite angle and try something different. Put it at the opposite angle and have my student Dan Maloney put the pickup in. So Dan Maloney was the guitar tech that put the Bill Lawrence pickup in blue, and that's the first big modification.
And that was
Is
angled?
that was the angled humbucker, yeah. So actually, let me pull. This is my '97 replica, so you see how the pickup is angled. Same thing with the sticker strat too. Set up the same way. Just really all it's doing is just carving a larger hole out of the single coil bridge pickup to make this fit. That's really all it's doing, and kind of carving away under the body a little bit too.
And
So
from a gearhead perspective, because
mhm.
you and my listeners know I am not, what does that do for the sound?
A lot of people say that it changes the sound. A lot of people say that it doesn't. Really, what it's down to is these are the days kind of right before like the term super strat started coming around, with like a lot of the metal bands playing tricked out guitars with locking tremolos and all of this. It's really a modification that was done out of necessity because you didn't really see tricked out guitars back then, and there were no like readily available replacement pickguards with like a straight HSS like setup for a pickguard. Like that really wasn't a thing back then.
Mm.
And if it was, you really had to like know about it.
So he recorded everything through what, Insomniac with this?
Yep. So yeah, the first EP, 1,000 hours, and a lot of demos that have made it onto the internet and bits and pieces. That's all blue. The first EP, 39 Smooth, Slappy, Kerplunk. Yeah, everything up until Insomniac is blue, which is
Man,
pretty wild to think about.
I mean, Dookie is just like the most iconic
Mhm.
album, man. Like
Yep.
an all timer. And just to think, like a little Fernandez guitar that he got like
Yeah.
from his guitar teacher, track that's nuts.
Hmm.
Was that still with that Bill Lawrence pickup or whatever? Do we know?
Yeah, so everything I know for sure, everything up until Dookie is the Bill Lawrence pickup. Because I have one in one of my other guitars. The Bill Lawrence pickup has a very distinct sound. It has a nice crunch to it. It also can get a little, I guess, a little thin at times. Like it has like that ice pick in the ear a little bit. You can kind of hear that on a couple of the recordings, so it has that kind of characteristic. So it's a very like identifiable sound kind of thing, and that's really what makes up the bulk of the early stuff. There were a ton of guitars that were used on Dookie, but the engineer Neil King said that blue was used for most of
Mm.
it. Yeah, mostly rhythm stuff.
So since then, what are some of the other significant modifications or changes? Because he's swapped that pickup, right?
Yeah, that pickup has been swapped quite a few times over the years. So I don't have a clear answer for this because I've never been able to get a hold of anybody that was around then. Um, from what I understand is that I believe during the recording of Insomniac is when the JB was put in.
Mm.
Okay, so the Bill Lawrence was in the guitar. The latest that I saw is January of 1995 when they played Basket Case on top of the Pops, the three of them playing. It was the Fillmore in I believe in San Francisco. They're just playing to an empty venue and they're just recording their performance probably from the board. And there's some really good camera shots in the beginning of that video. You can see it's a rail pickup, which is the Bill Lawrence pickup.
Did he ever mess with the neck or the tuner, like the tuners or anything?
Hmm. The neck has always been what it was. Actually, on the pickups, glad I just remembered this. Is that actually at one point, because I know people ask me about this, is that in August of '94, actually the pickup was swapped. It was swapped to that white humbucker that you see at Woodstock '94 and some of the Lollapalooza dates after that. I'm not quite sure what that pickup is. I've heard people say that it's a JB. I've heard somebody say that it was out of a Yamaha Pacifica guitar, which is rather interesting. So if anybody has anything to back that up, let me know. So that pickup stays in the guitar because Woodstock, everybody like that's an iconic performance, with the mud fight and everything. Mike
Oh
gets
yeah.
tackled by the security guard and all that. So that's what people will remember. So the white pickup is in the guitar until November of '94, and then the Bill Lawrence is put back in the guitar, and that's in until January of '95.
What about the neck and the middle? Were they ever swapped?
No, those have always been original. At a certain point, those two were just taken out of the circuit, and they were just left in there. So it's always
Oh,
been so for as long as I can remember, is that it's always at a certain point it was just like Tom DeLonge style, just humbucker to the volume to the jack.
man. That's cool
Mhm.
though that he left the OGs in like to this day.
Yeah, they're still there. They're actually set flush with the pick guard. They're not like sticking up or anything like that.
Oh, interesting. I wonder
Mhm.
if they had to like carve out that cavity a little bit to shove it down.
Not really. It's just adjusting the screws to until the pickup is sitting flat.
So still original neck to this day?
Yep, same neck. The only thing that's changed is the tuners and a string tree here and there.
Oh my gosh, man.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was just shocked. Like, I'm so glad that you and I had chatted a little bit about it, and that, my brother-in-law, like I said, he's a big Green Day fan, so he mentioned it. And heading to the show, I certainly appreciate the history of these axes, and especially when it comes to like tracking and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
when he pulled that out, I thought maybe he'd play it for a song or something. Dude, he played that like 30, 40% of the set. I feel like
Yep.
it was just so cool to see that up front and just look
Hmm.
at the history and be able to appreciate it a little bit. It's pretty rad.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's very much a great like a greatest of all time
Mm,
kind of guitar, especially in the world of punk rock, because I think in terms of, I guess in the pop punk world, like what would be Tom's most iconic guitar? Probably the surf green with the smiley inlays to
yeah.
most people, uh, to to most Green Day fans, it's blue, especially the older fans,
Man,
because it's been with him. It's just been with him forever,
did
and
he
like I
start?
said, it'll probably be buried with him.
Yeah, I don't blame him. I mean, I would too. Did he start stickering that like immediately?
Pretty much, yeah. Really, when Green Day started coming together and when they started playing at Gilman, was just pick up some stickers from bands at the merch table and just put them on, just to just support your friends. That's really what it's down to, and it's the same thing with the sticker strat too. I remember you saying at one point you talked to Tom and he said, yeah, those were just bands we played with.
Yeah, it's
Lagwagon,
just
Rhythm Collision, those are all bands we played with back then. It's the same thing with Blue, is that if you really know like where they come from, and if you're really into like the sticker history of that guitar, and he's put a lot of different stuff on it over the years, is that you really have to like kind of understand where they come from. Like I'm still learning new things each day, and one thing, the common thread through it all is that it's all East Bay, like Gilman Street related.
the stickers in and of itself is pretty cool. Like, I'm sure you're
Yeah.
probably able to date stuff by the stickers, I would
Oh
assume,
yeah,
just like we did with the sticker strat.
yeah, it's exactly the same thing. Is that I can easily tell like, oh, this is from '94, or oh, this is from 2002 or something like that. Just being able to call out a date just kind of like by how the guitar looks.
Yeah, as far as the stickers go, like one of the cool things to me, it seems like this thing is still evolving. Like, I think in his
Hmm.
mind, it's not like he doesn't bring this thing out on stage to like pay homage to the early days and like preserve its early build or whatever. Like, I think this is truly just like his baby. It's like his baby that's still evolving,
It
like still his
really
main
is.
acts. Because I think about it, to me it's like I try to equate this to Tom's like sticker strat. I
Mhm.
would be kind of bummed if Tom started like plastering new stickers all over it, or kind of changing it, because there's so much history there that you should preserve, in my opinion. But for
Especially
him,
because in the case of his guitar, because he took all of them off at one point, so
yeah,
that kind of marks the end of an era.
yeah. But it's cool that to Billy, like, I mean, is he still slapping stickers on to this day?
Oh yeah, the most recent ones that he added were the one-eyed bastard, which is the purple sticker with the eye patch, which is that's one of their songs on Saviors. The F sticker, which is the Fillmore, he put that on. And if you look really closely, that sticker's already starting to like wear away because
Mm,
if you know anything about Billy Joe's playing style, he strums the whole freaking guitar, man. Like
mm.
he doesn't use his wrist at all. Is that he hits with his shoulder and he hits really hard. So and he's strumming the whole freaking guitar.
Isn't there a picture of him on the back of it?
Yeah, that was added around 2005. It's a photo of him with Blue pretty much right after he got it with absolutely nothing done to it.
I wonder if it's like taped on or like how is it even
It's taped
applied?
on. Believe it or not, that is actually from a VH1 special that was done about Green Day up until about American Idiot. It was about 2005 when it came out. And if you look really closely, you can see a VH1 logo. So it's from their Driven series where they just profile like a bunch of bands, and one of the bands they profiled was Green Day, and they used that photo in the show. So